unleashed, vicious, feral, and like fabulous.
BD here, welcome back to the YouTube channel, and in this video we are talking about The Penguin Episode 6. I will share my thoughts, including a 10 score at the end of the video, so go ahead and drop yours in the comment section now. And I will also share some predictions for where I think this show is going with only 2 episodes remaining. And those predictions involve Batman and, more specifically, Catwoman. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel because the race to 30K against myself is in full swing, and I'm very excited to hit another milestone. Thank you so much in advance. Spoilers ahead, let's jump in. First of all, this episode has a pretty substantial time jump, which has big implications for the Batman universe as a whole, but we'll get to that later on. I'm not a huge fan of the time jump happening. Although it may not have been that long, it was enough time for Oz to go from 2 buckets of mushrooms to a whole plant of them very, very easily, making the result of so many of them getting damaged in that heist escape from a couple episodes back barely an inconvenience. But it did also get Sophia a new haircut, and as a resident Kristen Milioti fan right here on the channel, she could do no wrong. I'm cool with, a new version of her. I support Mommy Gigante. Yeah. But with all this happening and the criminals in Gotham organizing an uprising and there's explosions and shit, where is Batman? Now I know, he got hit with a shotgun the last time we saw him. The dude is only human, I know. But there's now a time jump, and all this stuff has been unfolding for a while, so the world's greatest detective should probably be on the case by now. No, this is the first time I have felt like we should have Batman / Bruce Wayne at least having some sort of presence. Maybe not physically showing up in the show, but the criminals somewhat being afraid of him, or maybe just an Easter egg showing that he's on their tails. Maybe we'll get to that. More predictions coming up. Because I do think Selina Kyle, Catwoman, is actually a factor in this whole story, so stick around for the predictions part, because it's going to get interesting. Oz and Sophia both had major developments in this episode, but this one really seemed like the Vic show in a big way, which scares me a little bit for my boy. Not only is this kid suddenly a motorcycle-riding, pistol-wielding badass, he's also a killer now! I saw it coming, I thought this was very predictable, I felt like this was like the drastic next chapter in Vic's arc in The Penguin, from scared, innocent, unconfident kid to killer, but it was still hard to watch even though it felt like the only thing that could happen in this scene. And shout out to Mick Giacchino for the music in that moment that really solidified this as a powerful, powerful moment in The Penguin. And then you have Oz basically being like crime daddy to Vic, which is both kind of sweet but also really gross, because these people really exist. Like, there are people like Oz out there in the world. There are these criminals who think their shit don't stink. They think everything they do is right. They really believe in themselves and their way of life because maybe the world taught them to be that way, or maybe they just became that way. But you can tell that Oz has a level of sort of manipulative authenticity in the way he talks to Vic. He's clearly taking Vic under his arm, under his wing. I guess, it's the Penguin, so it'd be a little wing even though he can't fly. And it's just taking advantage of the kid, but also seemingly having a genuine desire to prop him up. And maybe that's selfish, maybe it's narcissistic and self-serving, him wanting to feel like he propped Vic up, he's having ownership of this kid that he's helping build up in the criminal underworld of Gotham. But it is some sort of connection, and I buy it. I do think Oz has a real connection to Vic. I don't think it's totally bullshit. And I think Vic has a real connection back to Oz and his mom. Like that scene at the table in Crown Point where Vic is talking to Francis and talking about Jack, Oz's late brother, was really interesting because Vic is sort of better at handling Oz's mom than Oz is, but also it was very triggering for Oz, which makes me think, like, are we going to get more backstory about the brothers and what happened, why that bothered Oz so much, or was he just mad that Vic was better at handling his mother than he was? That was a very interesting moment, and it made me curious if that's going to be expanded upon later. And since we're talking about Oz's mom, this woman is a liability now. We got to be honest about it. If you're Oz, yeah, you love your mom. You're always going to do everything you can to make sure she's looked after and taken care of. But she is the one thing that he cares about, and Sophia is looking for that. And also, she really can't do anything to take care of herself while her son is immersing himself into a very dangerous world that's going to be very time-consuming, and everybody he cares about is going to be in danger. So I do think Oz's mom is becoming a bit of a liability for Oz, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, if it's even able to play out beyond the cliffhanger ending of this episode. And the performances between Colin Farrell and Dee Dee O'Connell are just fantastic. And the direction, like the mirror placement, making sure we have their faces, even the behind shots. It's just, this show doesn't miss a single opportunity to nail every detail and make it cinema. And meanwhile, Sophia is also having like revelations in this episode. Not only is she playing mommy dominator to Dr. Rush, that was very interesting to see, but Dr. Rush said that he has an expertise which she can use if she needs to. Was I wrong? Is this guy actually going to turn out to be Scarecrow? Did he have a hand in gassing the Falcons? Is he actually a chemical genius? I found that little piece of dialogue in there to be very intriguing, and I think it's going to matter big time later on. And I also found it hilarious that after she was dominating this dude in the bedroom, she walked out and said to Sal, "I didn't have you pegged as a cook." The jokes are writing themselves. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry! And more interesting than either of those scenes with her new therapist boyfriend or Sal Maroni was the scene with Sophia and Eve. This scene to me was like a perfect mirror of how the show started with Alberto and Oz. Whereas Oz is a loose cannon, he's not as calculated as Sophia is, he's not as under control as Sophia is. Sophia had total control of that situation. Eve sort of accepted her fate, even though she learned the truth about Sophia not being the hangman and instantly sympathized with her. And Sophia learned that Eve didn't know all this information and chose to let her live, and that's the difference. Oz chose to kill Alberto in that moment, whereas Sophia chose not to kill Eve because it just wasn't necessary, and as a result, she got the information she needed about where Oz is. And I think the dialogue in this scene was really tremendous as well. Like, you could see how Sophia knows how these men in Gotham work, what makes them tick, what feeds their ego and all that stuff, and so does Eve. But Sophia is still better at all of that than Eve is. When Eve tried her tricks on Sophia by saying, "You have all the power now," Sophia responded by saying, "You also are really good at telling people what they want to hear." So Sophia is very difficult to manipulate, and I think that's also a testament to the fact that Oz kind of played her. He had the upper hand, he was gaining Sophia's trust, and he was full of shit. So now maybe Sophia's guard is going up and up and up as a result. And one last thing about that scene, I really felt like the lighting in the back of Eve's house there looked like it could be the future umbrella topper thing for the Penguin when he has one, or at least it was foreshadowing that that's going to exist, right? And then boom, we get the insane cliffhanger of Sophia showing up in Crown Point and having Vic and Francis in her sights, and then we just lose our minds because that's where the episode ends. Why did it end there? I've been saying it all along, I don't think Vic and Francis are both surviving this show. I kind of think that Francis is the main target for Sophia in this moment because she's looking for the one thing that Oz cares about. She's bent on revenge. She wants to hurt the Penguin. But I could see Francis sort of sacrificing herself to save Vic. She's clearly taking a liking to Vic, and she's ready to go. She doesn't want to be alive any longer. She doesn't want to struggle through these older years. She's ready to go. She asked Oz to send her off. So I could see her maybe sacrificing herself to save Vic, but also vice versa. I could see this being more heartbreaking if Vic chooses to sacrifice himself to save Francis, and that will also really piss off Oz. Either way, I think we're getting a very unhinged Oz as a result of whatever is about to happen next. Sophia already spared somebody in this episode. I don't think she's going to play nice or show mercy in the next episode. But I did say I think there's Batman ties and specifically Catwoman ties that could be coming up. Now, first of all, I think Batman does not show up in this series, but I think he might get name dropped, or there might be some sort of clue along the way to show that he's on the case, maybe quite literally like he is a detective. But Catwoman is the one who I think is going to end up involved. I think this episode starting with Vic on the bike was clearly foreshadowing of Selina Kyle's sort of whole motif of how she gets around Gotham like we saw in the Batman. And I think that Sophia is a major player. I think she's going to survive this show, and I think that she is going to empathize a bit with Selina Kyle. Selina Kyle's mother was strangled by Carmine Falcone. Selina Kyle's mother might have been a victim of the real hangman. So that scene with Eve had me thinking about how these women in Gotham sort of had this unspoken code where they're looking out for each other, where these men are doing horrible things. I think that Selina Kyle might sort of have a little bit of love or something, respect, hope for Sophia Falcone after learning that she was not the person who killed her mother, that she was tortured in Gotham and was actually just another victim of the same person who killed her mother. And I do think that that should be a factor in this show before the Batman 2. I'd like to see it pay off here. And so with 2 episodes left, though, I do think bodies are about to start dropping. I think Vic and Francis are in imminent danger. I think all the supporting characters and pieces around Oz and Sophia are hugely at risk, and I think bodies are going to drop on both sides. Oz just sort of rounded up a gang of misfit gangs. The lower ranking gangs are now all aligned with Oz, and I kind of buy that he has their back so long as it benefits him. I don't think he's actively going to try to put any of those gangs down. I think he needs them, and as long as he needs them, they all stand to gain from aligning with Oz. But I do think that some of those gangs are going to get caught up in a massive bit of warfare in Gotham between Oz's side against the Gigantes and Sal Maroni, all leading to the TV special. Like, we expect an explosive, big, crazy finale, and I think the lines are drawn, and that's exactly where we're heading. So the subtlety is going to come in the connections to the Batman characters in the Batman Part 2. The explosiveness is going to come in this gang warfare that I think is about to happen in these final 2 episodes. And now it's time to rate this episode. What do I think of The Penguin episode 6 on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10. I thought it was the slowest episode yet. This felt like the big setup episode with only 2 episodes remaining, and it had a massive, awesome cliffhanger and a lot of slower stuff happening along the way. Vic had a great moment. The cinematography was tremendous again. I also think the relationship between Oz and his mom remains tremendously the heart of this show, at least from Oz's perspective. And I think we're really getting set up to have our hearts ripped out for the people that find themselves caught up in Oz's schemes. So all things considered, the music, the acting, the directing, the pacing, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. It's my least favorite episode of the series so far, but I don't say that as a massive criticism. I think every episode before this was a 9 out of 10 or higher. I think this was the setup episode, and therefore it ranks a little bit lower on a list of all phenomenal episodes. This show remains undefeated. It hasn't had a bad episode yet. What would you rate The Penguin episode 6 on a scale of 1 to 10? Do you think the Batman and or Catwoman are going to be factors in the final 2 episodes of the show? Share your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, exclusive interviews, and more fun stuff. I'm having fun growing this channel. We're almost at 30,000 subscribers. I hope we hit that by the time The Penguin is over. We're on track to do that. Thank you so much for taking this ride and having fun with me. I'm BD. I'll see you in the next video.